20 years ago, by pure happenstance, I built with Linda the first cob cottage in North America. It grabbed people's imaginations to the point where thousands of people are excited about this stuff and building with it and writing about it and doing all sorts of things. And cob is the ground from under your feet mixed with straw and water and sometimes extra clay and sometimes extra sand, depending upon what the ground's like. And all you need to do is tread it together to make it all stick together and make good mud, and stack the mud up, and that's cob. So with that material, which should be, if not free, very close to free, you can build the walls, the floors, and the plasters. You'll need some other things for foundations, like old concrete sidewalks broken up, or secondhand brick, or rocks if you're in a rock area. Just be creative. Architects are somewhat like physicians. Their job is to prescribe the products of industry. They basically write in that illegible handwriting that all doctors have. Get 5,000 sheets of half-inch T111, or whatever it happens to be. That's their job, is to make the prescriptions for the builder to build whatever it is that they've drawn on a big plan. When you get down to doing it, it's really boring work. You spend most of your time in front of a telephone and a computer and arguing with people and dealing with folks who are frustrated and irritated by your part in the process. So I didn't last very long as an architect. When you work with a natural but amorphous material like mud, it doesn't want to conform to the sorts of shapes that the building industry has led us to expect are normal. And gradually I realized that we do the same with trees. We take this beautiful thing that's basically cylindrical, never quite straight, and we slice the sides off it, thereby taking off most of its strength in order to make it compatible with other building components that are also flat and rectilinear. My background and training and interests all had to do with some sort of connection between buildings and land. And so I applied to a graduate school in landscape architecture. There were only two in Western Europe at that time. And I did that by showing up at the house of the head of the program at 10 o'clock at night on a Saturday night, very naively thinking, oh, he'll be delighted to see me. And strangely enough, he was. And having been drinking alone all evening, he was very happy to see a drinking companion. So Frank Clark and I drank 2 bottles of whiskey by about 4 o'clock in the morning, and at the end he said, being an English gentleman, oh, frightfully nice of you to have come. I'm sorry I have to leave, but I need to go to bed. And so you'll be joining my program in September? I said, yes, of course. Not being able to refuse such a kind offer. And so I got into graduate school in Edinburgh, one of the British Ivy League, without ever having any sort of papers to back me up. And it took them a year to find out that I didn't have an undergraduate degree, by which time they were very embarrassed that they hadn't discovered that. So I ended up with a red-hot graduate degree without any of the stuff that went before it.
This particular building that we have as a demonstration, it's probably about 600 round feet or so. We're sculpting around the activities, so it feels very curvilinear in a sense. And you walk in the door and you have a very uplifting feeling in the kitchen, and you may walk down into a little snug with a rocket stove, dining room, little living room area, climb up a spiral staircase up into sleeping loft area and a desking area or dressing. Being all passive solar and having a lot of light to the south, it feels very spacious. It's amazing how spacious it feels.
We've been running Escob Cottage Company for half of the first 30-year cycle. When we started the company, we said, let's give it a try for 30 years and see what happens. And that will take me into my 80s. So the original idea was to make people aware of the value of earth as a building material and create demonstration tiny houses that would present an overall demand for smaller housing in North America. What's happened over these 15 years is that our focus has moved away from a building material to buildings. Now we're much more interested in the buildings we teach people to make. Stacking mud is really easy. Mud pies, this is the simplest technology in the world. So we quickly got to a point where we were able to offer people respectable and ecstatic little houses that they could build for themselves fairly quickly at almost no cost.
Part of our work is what we call the Starter House. It's a project that we help alumni students design and build a house from start to finish. So after they take a 10-day workshop, read the book, and they're ready to build, we have some examples that will show you different designs that you could go home and do. And the idea of a starter house is something very small that you can finish in a building year for about $5,000 or less. The starter cottages are designed to be small enough like you can finish in a year and be able to just start improving the quality of your life. The following year you could do some add-ons, or you could build another house, and this starter project can be a guest house or a granny house or something like that.
If you decide you're going to have a house that you can't pay for immediately, you can choose to go looking for a mortgage. That any kind of loan for something that you can't afford is asking for trouble. If you're already in that situation, get out of it. And if you're not, for heaven's sake, don't get into it. A building site and ownership of land are two separate things. As for having land to build on, I don't own any land. I never have. I've managed to live in houses all my life. How is this? Well, I make arrangements with people who own land to have a house on their land, for which I normally pay either in kind or dollars for the privilege of having that house there. But the house is mine. I've said more than I need to say for the next week. Let's go and have a cup of tea.